Today, we're talking about a war that the United Nations calls the world's largest humanitarian crisis. And yet, somehow it's been raging largely outside of the global spotlight. This is the explainer on what many are calling the forgotten war in Sudan.
Just listen to this. That sounds like something out of a history book, right? But it's not. It's from a recent analysis of satellite pictures over a city in Sudan. It's a horrifying look at what is happening on the ground, right now.
So you just have to ask, how did we get here? How does a country with so much potential, one of the biggest in Africa, end up in this downward spiral of ethnic cleansing and all-out war? That's the question we're going to try and answer.
To really get a handle on this war, you first have to understand the two men at the center of it all. See, this isn't really a conflict about ideology. It's a raw, brutal battle for control between two men who used to be allies.
So you have General Burhan. He's the head of the official Sudanese Armed Forces, or SAF. And then you have General Dagalo, who leads this incredibly powerful paramilitary group known as the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. And here's the key thing to remember. They have a history. They actually worked together to overthrow a dictator, seized power for themselves, and then, eventually, turned on each other.
So, what was the spark? Why did they finally go to war? Well, it really boils down to this. The official army wanted to absorb the RSF. But for Dagalo and his forces, this wasn't just some bureaucratic move. It meant giving up everything: their independence, their influence, and critically, their control over Sudan's hugely profitable gold mines. It was a fight for power, plain and simple.
This timeline just shows you how fast everything fell apart. Back in 2019, there was so much hope. Huge street protests toppled a dictator who'd been in power for 30 years. They even tried to form a joint civilian-military government. But that hope, it didn't last. By 2021, the generals took full control. And by April of 2023, their alliance completely shattered, and the country was plunged into civil war.
And after years of brutal fighting, this is the reality on the ground today. Sudan is effectively broken into two. The RSF controls the west, including the massive region of Darfur, while the army holds the north and the east. This split has created very real fears that the country could permanently break apart. Now, to really understand the sheer brutality of the RSF and what's happening in western Sudan, we have to go back in time, because the roots of today's violence were planted during a genocide that shocked the world a couple of decades ago.
Back in the early 2000s, the government unleashed a militia called the Janjaweed. The name literally means devils on horseback. They were sent to crush a rebellion in Darfur, but they did far more than that. They systematically targeted non-Arab civilians in a campaign of terror that was later recognized as a genocide.
And here's where it all connects. General Dagalo, the leader of the RSF today, was a commander in the Janjaweed during that genocide. Then in 2013, the government gave the Janjaweed a makeover. They officially rebranded them into the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF. And now, today, that very same group, led by that very same man, is unleashing a new wave of violence against the exact same communities in Darfur.
So let's be perfectly clear. For the people of Darfur, the RSF is not some new group. It's the Janjaweed, just with a different name. They're seeing the same brutal methods, targeting the same people. It's just happening under a new banner.
This war, born from a power struggle and haunted by a dark past, is having a devastating impact on millions of ordinary Sudanese people. And the scale of this catastrophe, it's almost impossible to fully comprehend. Let's just look at the numbers. More than 150,000 people have been killed.
Beyond the death toll, over 10 million people have had to flee their homes. Think about that. 10 million. It is the largest displacement crisis on the entire planet. And right now, 30 million people, that's 60% of the entire population, are in desperate need of humanitarian aid just to survive. They are facing starvation and disease on a massive scale. And if you look at the global response, well, it's falling desperately short. The UN asked for $4.2 billion to help. The international community has only funded less than a third of that. The aid is just not keeping up with the overwhelming need. So why? Why is a crisis of this size being so overlooked? Well, the tragic answer is that while much of the world might be looking away, it is far from uninvolved. This war is actually being fueled by a complex web of foreign interests.
See, Sudan's location is incredibly strategic. It's a bridge between Africa and the Middle East. It borders the Red Sea, which is a vital shipping lane. Plus, it has huge gold reserves and key oil pipelines. What happens in Sudan doesn't stay in Sudan. It sends ripples across the entire region and beyond.
And this is how those interests are playing out on the ground. You have foreign powers allegedly arming both sides. The UAE is accused of supplying the RSF with sophisticated drones and weapons. Russia's Wagner Group has reportedly sent missiles in exchange for access to gold. And on the other side, Iran is said to be backing the army with drones, while neighboring Egypt provides military support. This constant flow of weapons makes sure the war can just keep going.
And while the weapons keep flowing in, peace is nowhere to be found. They've had round after round of peace talks, but every single attempt to get a lasting ceasefire has collapsed, leaving civilians to pay the price over and over again.
At the end of the day, this whole complex international mess can be boiled down to a simple, tragic truth. This entire catastrophe is happening because of the ambitions of just a few men. Their personal greed for power and wealth has been allowed to completely tear a nation apart.
Which leaves us with a final, very difficult question. We are seeing reports of ethnic cleansing emerge every single day, echoing a genocide from just 2 decades ago. So as history repeats itself right in front of us, what does it mean when a crisis this huge and this visible becomes the world's forgotten war?